Thank you, Ernie. About 7 or 8 years ago, I was sitting in a toxicology forum, set of talks on naphthalene and acrylamide. And it was very interesting toxicology, and I was very much engrossed in the toxicology. But at the end of the morning, in all the discussions, I sat there and I thought, what does all that mean? I couldn't quite pull it all together because I was looking through the narrow lens of what the presenters were giving me. It was easy to lose track of it. And on top of that, I said, and I actually asked the questions of the people that were making the presentations, what do I tell my family and what do I tell my neighbors about the safety of these products? You could hear a pin drop. Nobody could answer that question. And that was one of the reasons why we convened a group of people back in, 2010, 2009? And we said to ourselves, we can do better. We do this complete buffet of toxicology studies, pick through all of that stuff, yank out a number, and that's our toxicology value, and then we declare something as safe or unsafe. Oh, by the way, there might be an exposure component in there as well. And we said to ourselves, we can do better. And that's what the eminence of Risk21 was all about. And we got together with government, academics, 2 NGOs, and lots of corporate sponsors, and we came up with the Risk21 methodology. And that methodology really is something that today I think is becoming more and more relevant, and I'm going to show you how in just a minute. One of the things I did recently, and you can do this yourself, is you can go to the web and find out what's available on formaldehyde. And I'm not picking on IRIS now. Some people might think I would, but the integrated risk integration system looks at formaldehyde, and if you go on the website, what you'll find are all of these links to information. And just like the naphthalene and acrylamide presentations I heard at Toxicology Forum, it would take you forever to sort through that, and then you'd still go, what does all that mean? I'm not sure. And in fact, with over 2,000 pages, this is what I look like. The idea of looking at formaldehyde through that lens was very difficult. Not to say that they got it wrong or the information was incorrect. It was difficult to sort through what made a difference and what difference it made in a safety assessment. So taking all that information, we said, well, we can do that with Risk21. And for those of you familiar with it, this is the Risk21 matrix, and we said, well, here it is. If you want to look at outdoor versus indoor, on the x-axis you've got exposure, and on the y-axis you've got the degree of toxicity, high to low, and the more you're into the green, the more you have a safety characterization. Yellow and red, that's something that you need to be more concerned about. It also allows you to take a look at that information and say, well, if you use these exposure information or this hazard identification information, how would that change the risk characterization? Because where those two come together, exposure and tox, that's your risk evaluation. Very easy to see. Now, quite often we think of Risk21 as being this very graphical representation. It's pizzazz, it's something that's colorful, it catches the eye. But there's a lot of stuff behind that, and it's information that we very carefully put together in a Risk21 methodology. It's a 4-step process that is problem formulation based, it's exposure driven, not toxicology based. It uses the value of information from very simple to very complex information only to the degree that you need it before you go on to the next stage. So you take your exposure and toxicology information and put that in the 4th step into that risk matrix. And that is the Risk21 methodology, and it is shown very clearly in the matrix representation. We didn't stop there. We actually created a web tool. You can go right online to risk21.org, and you can put in your own information, and you can generate your own matrix there. The machinery that's behind that, of course, is the Risk21 methodology, the problem formulation based, exposure driven, and so forth. That's all the methodology that we put into a number of different publications. And those publications articulate exactly what we thought about with over 120 different experts from all over the world that got together to come up with this methodology. So these papers, the bottom 2 that you see there, are 2 case studies that we used to try to pressure test what we were doing. And those 2 case studies are on what we call pseudomethrin, and another one on 20 chemicals in water. Pseudomethrin, obviously something made up, but in fact is a real pyrethroid, is a case study where we said we've got a lot of data we can work with. What if you had a new active ingredient that you wanted to put on bed nets for mosquito prevention? Sound like something that might be good in Brazil? Well, just maybe this was coincidental, I don't know. But it was a question of how do you make your selection from the list of pyrethroids that you've got, all that data and information, and reflect on how that would tell you something about the safety of a new pyrethroid molecule that you come up with. So it's predictive toxicology. On top of that, we said, we do this menagerie of toxicology studies now. It's a buffet, and we pick from all that information. Instead of doing that, can we do this with less than 50 animals, and can we make the decision in less than a year? So that was the problem formulation. And what we came up with, and I'll breeze through it very quickly, is when you do the first assessment, you use the WHO's own assessment of transferability from those sleeping nets, so it's exposure-driven. And you take a look at some basic information on all the pyrethroids that are already registered, and you can do a first scratch sort of draft analysis of what the risk would look like, and this is how it would display. When you refine that and you use better data on exposure and on toxicity, it changes where it ends up on that risk matrix, and you can see it's moving into the green area, showing a greater safety profile. And we used additional information, and this happened to be 25 dog study, and it turns out that pseudomethrin is actually deltamethrin, so we fooled everybody by actually using a real compound to give to the committee to use. It actually matches up beautifully here and shows that you can use this product in bed nets to prevent mosquito bites anywhere you want to use it. So it was a very good example of how you use lots of data and dig deep into to make some decisions about safety. And that's the underlying principle of Risk21, enough precision to make a decision. So our second example was 20 chemicals in drinking water. This is where you might not have a whole lot of information on each chemical, but you're trying to do a priority, and that's what the problem formulation was. Which of these 20 chemicals are the ones that we have to be most concerned about? And we don't have a whole lot of data on that. So you go through the TTC analysis, you refine your exposure analysis, first of all based on solubility, and you say, all right, when you look at those 20 chemicals, what you can do is take the solubility and the TTC, and you can pull two of those out of there based on solubility and some basic information. By refining the exposure and TTC, you can pull another 9 out of there. And with the remaining 9 chemicals, you can pull 5 out of there by using refined exposure and actual toxicological information. This is an illustration of how you can iteratively go through that Risk21 4-point cycle and keep adding and going through and generating, if you need to, more data to refine your analysis. I should mention, too, that I think it was in the last week we got a call from the isocyanates committee and said, whoa, wait a minute, one of those 4 compounds you say is high priority is one of ours. And so we've been talking to them about that because they have additional data that we didn't know about. It was a perfect illustration of how this Risk21 matrix system works, iteratively. We said, give us your data, redo it, and sure enough, it actually gives a better profile. Fine. It's a perfect illustration of how the Risk21 system works. Well, you know how good you are or how popular you are by how many parties you get invited to, right? So we created this whole system, and lo and behold, we got a call from FDA, Center for Food Safety and Nutrition, last year and said, would you mind coming over and showing us this system? So we went over there and we spent some time explaining the Risk21 system. They loved it. We gave them case studies. I think, what was it, Michelle? 9 different case studies to do to get familiar with the system, get familiar with how you take exposure and toxicological information and put that into the Risk21 matrix. They had a ball, and so did we. We had a great time. Next thing you know, we get a call from the Taiwanese, and they say, hey, would you come over here and show us your system? So we had a party over there as well, and you can see all these laptops set up, looking at the Risk21 matrix. We illustrated the system, we went through the case studies. You wouldn't have known that it was in Chinese and in English, but it was, and we had a great time, and they were very appreciative of it. Next thing you know, we get a call from the Chinese. Can you come over here and show us your system? And so we went over there, and you can see the same cast of characters. And again, you can see, I think by these pictures, the energy that's in the room with these folks leaning in. And we often refer to Sam as having his group of followers there right in the middle, with everyone surrounding him, Alan Bubis with folks around him, eager to understand how to take complex information in a systematic way and put it into a very visual and transparent matrix. Again, it's a very, very popular, very interesting way of doing things, and it's really catching on. And in fact, the next, and here's Sam Cohen as we speak right now, not with his group of individuals following him, but he will actually be going with me down to Brazil next, and Flavio is hosting us down there and helping us out with the logistics. Showing the synergy between what HESI is doing, what ILSI is doing on a global basis in a footprint where we are actually translating all that convening we did before in an opportunity to protect human and environmental health. So we're going to go to Sao Paulo and Brasilia. We're meeting with, I think the number is over 85 different people in 2 different locations, again, to do this same kind of a teaching opportunity. It's a wonderful opportunity. On top of that, we have invitations from the Pest Management Regulatory Authority in Canada. We're going to be going up there. Derek, I think you're helping us out with that. And we've been talking with EPA's Office of Pesticide Programs, the Pesticide Programs Dialogue Committee. The idea there is to get an entree in and begin talking about how to get this kind of a system more accepted within the regulatory ranks and used by companies to not only use the methodology, the stepwise methodology, but also the matrix in displaying the information to make it very clear, transparent, and obvious. So that when we go back again and we look at things like formaldehyde, it's not as complex as it looks like. It actually is complex behind it, but we can understand what it means. So we want to shake it up. And certainly you can take your pick. You want this one? Or do you want this one? Thank you very much.